Good morning. It's Melanie Taylor on CBS Radio with Sunday Magazine. I am honored this morning to be joined by Judi Vitale. She's an empowerment consultant. I also know her. So this is going to be a fun 25 minutes for you if you're listening this morning. Good morning, Judi. Thanks for joining me.
How are you, Melanie?
We're doing well. And
Good.
we have a lot to get to. So first and foremost, I would like you, I love the local nature of who you are, and I would like everybody who's listening this morning to know what high school you went to and what college you went to, and actually all the titles that you have, because I know where you went to school. But let everybody know, Judi, your background a little bit.
Well, I went to Menneson High School, and back in those days, I was very much into singing, and I studied music for 1 year at Carnegie Mellon. And after about a year, decided maybe it would be better for me to go into something else. So I was an urban history major. I graduated in 1978 from back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
No.
From Carnegie Mellon. And then I went to the University of Pittsburgh for a master's degree in public administration. And from there, my path kind of went into information technology. And after a few years, it was not a great time for Pittsburgh when I came out. I moved to New York City. And I guess it was part of my life path, because when I got there, I was working in the IT field. I was always involved in communications. I helped people to understand how computers worked and what the computer people were doing to make them better, that sort of thing. And it was always about bridging communication gaps, and that's been the theme throughout my life. And then I started to study astrology really intently. I became a certified astrologer in 1995. It was a long path. I studied for many, many, many years. It was probably a lot harder to get that than it was my first master's degree, so that's an interesting kind of factoid. And then after that, I was raising my son. I had an ideal situation where I was living in New York City, raising my little boy, and writing for magazines. I had quite a few horoscope columns, magazines like Red Book and Marie Claire. I wrote for Tarot.com. I also wrote for 17.com. And it was a real treat to introduce the idea of how there was like this cosmic force helping people and to present that to the general public. And again, it's that communication thing that I really like to do. And so as things evolved in the writing business, I found myself in a position where I needed to maybe get some other skills and different skills. And so I studied hypnotherapy. Ooh. And my motivation for this was I really wanted to help the people that I was seeing to develop some strength with dealing with the things from their past that were haunting them, or how to build their confidence. And now I call myself an empowerment consultant, because I like to empower people not to just get the answers, an easy answer, but to develop their own answers to their issues. So I use a combination of transpersonal coaching, which is coaching with a focus on the spiritual component of the human condition, where we're looking at how we fit into the world in a spiritual way. And I use the astrology still usually as a diagnostic tool to help people understand what they're made up of, what their map is like. And then I'm also working on a degree in transpersonal counseling, a master's degree. So I've been busy. I also do EMDR. I'm working on that. And then this June, I'm going to take a yoga teacher certification course. So I'm trying to be as well-rounded and as helpful to other people as I possibly can be.
Well, that's a wonderful backstory. And you talk about well-rounded. That's a little bit of everything. And you kind of answered my question about an empowerment consultant. And I know, Judi, that you've written many, many books. In fact, we'll keep throughout this interview this morning talking about the website readthestars.com. You can find a lot of information out there. But how many books have you written? Can you think off the top of your head? I'm sure you know. And I know I'm going to, after you answer my question, talk about this last book before we get into the interview.
Sure. There are 3 books. One is called Love Cats. It's very difficult to, it's Lovecasts, and try telling a publisher that the name doesn't work when you try to publicize it. But, the publication company just insisted on that name, and it's really about relationships. And my theory of astrology and relationships is not that this sign only gets along with these signs. It's that all signs can get along with a little bit of understanding. And so that's what that book is about.
Mm-hmm.
The second book is Baby Astrology, a little bit easier for people to kind of wrap their heads around that title, and it's about your little star, your baby, and also goes into childhood and even teenagerhood and some of the discussions about what you need to know about a child based on his or her astrology sign and how you can best parent them. And then the third book is called Live in Spirit, Love Your Life, which I got to drive the whole thing with that, which was kind of fun. And these days it's just great because you can really publish your own book with great ease. And it's just that you have to do it all, and that's the bad part, the good part and the bad part. But this book is about my take on how to get in touch with what I call the ultra self, that spiritual voice inside of us, the one that's going like, do you really need to eat another brownie? Or, shouldn't you be thinking about doing that assignment rather than just planning it out,
right,
or doing something fun or watching TV instead? It's our highest wisdom. And so it's an idea of aligning our actions, the things that we do, with our passion and purpose in life.
That's great to know. That's the first bullet point that I wanted to get to. We're talking with Judi Vitale this morning, an empowerment consultant, readthestars.com. And I wanted to talk to you about that discussion of the life purpose and how you can stay on that path and align your lives for something better happiness, better satisfaction in life.
Yeah, well, everybody has something that they really want to do.
Right.
And especially when you get to certain ages, you think like, oh my gosh, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 70, I'm 80, and I haven't done that thing yet.
Right.
So, you really want to identify what that thing is. And how do you feel purposeful? Without a purpose, people become rudderless. They get into a mechanistic lifestyle that just makes them very unhappy and unhealthy. And so we want to realign them so that they're doing what their purpose and their passion is.
We're talking this morning with Judi Vitale. She is local. You're not in New York City anymore. Let's just clarify that, right?
I am not. No. I moved back to Pittsburgh in 2010, and it's been my great pleasure to be here. I love it here.
Right.
Originally, I came back to help take care of my mother, who's getting on in years, and even after she passed away at the ripe old age of 93, I decided to stay because I really love what has happened to Pittsburgh while I was away. They call me the gum bander. I went away and came back.
Yeah, right. We get caught in this web, right?
I love it here.
Right.
I really do. And I love that the things that I do are fresh here.
Right.
New York City is a very large room with a lot of people screaming, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. And here it's a lot easier for me to focus and also to develop and grow. And I just love it here.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking this morning. I am Melanie Taylor with CBS Radio on Sunday Magazine with Judi Vitale, an empowerment consultant. You can check out the website, readthestars.com. All right, Judi, let's go into the next on the list. And, you sent me a great list before we actually had this interview. But the next one I want to talk about is emotional wounds and how to treat them, treating trauma, instead of, I get this all the time, and I'm sure you've gotten this in your life, just move on. Just go with it. Just move on. How do you do that correctly?
Well, you can't always move on from a trauma because lots of times people don't know what the trauma is, because when we are actually traumatized, whether it's something like living through an attack as in a war, or, having a parent who was abusive, having something traumatic happen in a school situation, whatever it was, the brain goes into a very kind of dysfunctional state whereby it bypasses the part of the brain that is logical, that can think it through and say, oh, just move on. Mm-hmm. And it stays in a state of fight or flight. And that's where people develop anxiety. So, even like having a difficult birth can affect a person.
Right.
They can become claustrophobic because as a baby, they were trying to push through and come out into the world, and they were unable to do that in an easy way. So they feel closed in all the time. So we go in by accessing the subconscious part of the brain where those ideas are stored. And there are several techniques that a person can use for that. I use hypnotherapy. It's called heart-centered hypnotherapy. It's taught by the Wellness Institute in Issaquah, Washington, which is where I'm studying and where I have studied. And we allow the person to go into just a very light trance. You remember everything that you say and do in this state, and there's no manipulation. Nobody makes you do anything. It just allows you to gain access to those memories, so that you can go back and be that little child and express the feelings that you had in that moment, and then allow them to be processed through the rational mind. And you come back, and instead of accepting I'm not important and I don't matter as a fact, you come back like, I am very important and I matter very much. And sometimes we allow a person to have a conversation with that version of themselves that's a little child, and have them talk about how they're going to protect that child and take care of him or her, and really nurture the inner emotions because they stay there. They're just there. And you might not understand why you react to something the way that you do. And it's often because there are unresolved memories from the past.
And I'm sure if you do work through those, then it's easier to move on.
It is. Then, you can get, you never get over some things, but you do get past them.
Right.
And so that's the way to get past them, is to reprocess what you thought was true.
Wow.
And come out with a different version of it.
Yeah.
And another way of doing that is EMDR, which is another technique that I use, and that is eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. And that is a different way of bringing people into that state of consciousness where they can access those memories and reprocess them.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the EMDR was, and it is eye movement. Wow.
Yeah. It's not just eye movement, by the way. Sometimes if it doesn't work with people's eyes, they can use their hands, they can use lights, they can use vibrations. It's about the bilateral stimulation of the brain, and it's almost a mechanical way. And this is for people who say, I can't be hypnotized, or sometimes people are so fearful of letting go of control of their consciousness that they really don't like to be hypnotized.
Yeah.
And EMDR is not really hypnosis, but it still has like a mechanical effect on the brain where it gains access to the subconscious and allows us to reprocess those old messages.
Talking this morning with author, I should say also, Judi Vitale, who is an empowerment consultant. This is CBS Radio with Sunday Magazine. I'm Melanie Taylor. The website you could check everything out at is readthestars.com. All right, codependency in relationships. Why do we need to think first and foremost with this saying, I am enough?
Well, so many people suffer from codependency because we think that we're not enough. It can start as early as birth, when you come into a family and, they were expecting the opposite gender child, and you have this legend, that goes through your whole life about, oh, well, they wish that I were not what I am. And then, of course, it develops when you have an unpredictable, significant person in your life. And this can be anything from a parent who suffers from some sort of distraction, anything ranging from actual substance abuse to workaholism, to just being preoccupied with something else and always trying to please and please and please. And so we put other people ahead of ourselves, and we enter this state of codependency where we're trying to control the unpredictable or make sense out of the preposterous, and we can't. So we have to turn our attention toward ourselves and how we can be the center. I always say to people, you can't change other people. You can only change the way that you react to them.
Oh, so true.
Yeah, so that's really where it's at. I mean, you have to be able to change your own reaction to the world around you.
Yeah. Wow.
And that comes from being centered, not being self-centered or selfish, but to honor the divine within ourselves and to really have that constant contact with our very highest self, which leads to, the divine, to however you want to characterize that. And, none of this contradicts any religion or anything. It supports it.
It supports it.
And
You're right.
And it really, validates the idea of having our first connection to the divine, because that's where we all came from and that's where we're all going.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly, 100%. I'm going to jump around off course a little bit instead of going into changing relationships right after this, because I want to get to this because I think people listening, a lot of people can relate to this. But we're talking this morning to Judi Vitale, author and empowerment consultant. This is Melanie Taylor. You're listening to CBS Radio. This is Sunday Magazine. Judi says this website is everything you need to know at readthestars.com. That's readthestars.com. Let's jump to this, Judi. Like I said, I think this is very relatable, is getting through grief. So losing a loved one, how is, this maybe can be turned into something a little bit more positive. I hate to use the word positive, but maybe a growth experience or something that's just, grief sticks with people for really, really a long periods of time. And there's no correct way to grieve, and you can't necessarily tell somebody how to do that. But talk a little bit about getting through grief.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with a quotation from someone you may not expect something so profound to have come from. But when Paul McCartney, the former Beatle and the great songwriter and performer, lost his wife, and they were very close, and it was a very big blow to him. And somebody said, "Well, how are you feeling?" He said, "Well, I'll never get over it, but I will get through it." Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to do when you have to accept. There is a theory about grief, that there's a process and all of that. But, again, it's about understanding the feeling of loss. And I think a lot of it has to do, getting through it has to do with the understanding that there is still a connection with that other person, both through what you've already been through together in your life, and also that there's a presence that comes afterwards if you're open to it, that you're open to even just thinking like, well, what would he or she say in this situation?
Yeah.
And to just accept that they're in a different form. But spirit is so permanent that it's still around even when the person is no longer in the body. They're around, and you can go to a medium and all of that kind of thing, but you can also just close your eyes and imagine and ask for things, and you will feel that person around you. But getting through the sense of loss, again, has to do with figuring out how to do things through a sense of having yourself being the center of your existence. Getting over the thing of like always depending on the other person and
right.
seeing, that you have to do things for yourself. And and it can be very devastating. I think the most profound case that I ever saw was a woman whose husband just sort of dropped over, and we put her into, the hypnotherapy, and she went back to the time when her father passed away. And the same thing happened to her father. So that was rather profound.
Yeah,
and on top of that, she's a medical professional.
Oh.
So she really had this thing of, why could I not save them?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that was going on. And in the session, she had the realization that they were both still with her, and that finally in her heart, when she was able to open her heart and to breathe in the idea of her having her life, she could feel the two of them meeting in her heart. And they never got to meet in real life because her father had passed before she met her husband. And
wow.
She had a very big emotional breakthrough, and it was a little easier for her. Of course, there are going to be times. There are holidays to get through. There are, crises. There are all kinds of good things and difficult things that we have to get through without our loved one. But remembering that you still have that tie to them is really the key to getting through grief.
Yeah, that is true. That is 100% true. Judi Vitale, we're talking with you this morning, author and now an empowerment consultant. I love that. She has history and many books. The latest book is Live in Spirit, Love Your Life. And the website is readthestars.com. This is Melanie Taylor with CBS Radio. And we have a good 5 minutes left, 5 or 6 minutes. And I want to go this route now. We just talked about grief. But Judi, talk a little bit about how to make relationships better than ever, whether that be with partners, significant others, or whether that be with family. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think the first thing is something that we already covered a little bit, and that's to really put the focus on ourselves. And to understand, when a lot of people, when they go out dating and they kind of just settle for the first person who comes along,
yeah,
that's very rarely a good idea. because you have to know who you are and what you want in your life. And once you get to a certain phase of life, sometimes you don't even want somebody around each and every day. It might be that you want to see somebody 2 or 3 times a week, and that's enough.
Right.
And to accept what your relationship needs are. Maybe if you do need somebody around every day, someone who doesn't provide that for you isn't going to be the right person. And to stop trying to make other people into the right person and to just accept who we are and what we need, and to also just keep repeating that little mantra that you brought up, I am enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then anybody who comes into my life adds to it rather than becomes the center of it.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because it's really important that you're adding to them. And it's also, instead a very wise person say to me, well, you're always complaining about when am I going to be loved? When are you going to love someone else? So when you love yourself and you come to that connection with your divine, like I try to get my clients to do, you realize that you have this infinite supply of love in your heart that you can share with others. And when you do that, it almost doesn't matter if you get loved back, because it's just such a pleasure to give that love to them. But, as long as you have a center inside your own being.
And it's really, too, is it true when people say that you can't really rely on somebody else to make you happy? You have to be happy within yourself first and make yourself happy? That's true, right?
Absolutely true. Because, you can't change yourself to fit whatever it is the other person's doing to make you happy.
Mm-hmm. And that's good to know. That's really good to know. We're talking this morning, CBS Radio, with Sunday Magazine, Judi Vitale, empowerment consultant locally here in the city of Pittsburgh. Also an author of her latest book. She has 3. This is her latest, Live in Spirit, Love Your Life. And the website is readthestars.com. All right, we have like 3-4 minutes left. I want you to touch upon just a little bit about astrology. I know that's a whole nother interview we could probably do later this year, Judi, but just a little bit about astrology. And I don't know, give the listener a little something to go with this morning.
Well, astrology, people think about the horoscopes that they see now on the web. I mean, we used to read them in the newspapers and the magazines and everything, but, now they're mostly on the web, or you hear little snippets. And it really, I guess that the best kind of characterization that I've ever heard of it came from a spiritual scientist. He called himself Rudolf Steiner. He lived in the early part of the 20th century, and he said that the astrology chart, which is all of the planets and the points in the chart, it's a pattern that was imposed on the soul when the soul came into the earth. And so there's this pattern of where all the planets were in the sky, and it sort of shapes who we are, and it kind of describes the purpose that we're here, why we came here to live this life, and what what our talents are, what our challenges are. And with astrology, you can really understand this and see and kind of validate a lot of the things that you might think about and say, well, is that really true about me, or am I just dreaming? I mean, you find these things out. And the other thing it can do, of course, is provide sort of a weather report telling you when it's a good time to find a job or to look for love. And there are cycles that we go through, and this is something that, I have a podcast now with Jossa Johnson, and we're working on really bringing people under the idea of taking deep dives. And one of them that we want to do is to bring people into understanding life cycles, so that when a person has like a big birthday, there are things going on in astrology that correlate to them, and it helps with the symbolism. For example, when a person turns 30 and when a person turns 60, you have the return of the planet Saturn back to where it was when you were born. And this is a time when your life just changes completely. At 30, you're kind of starting off on your life. And then at 60, you're kind of like looking at retirement or whatever comes next. In both cases, it's about restructuring what you're doing. And so we want to be able to present to people the tools that they need in order to go through these life passages. And there are bunches of them. I mean, there's another one at 42. There's another one at 45, and, they go on up into the 80s and 90s, all these life changes that people go through, and you can do it with children as well, looking at how they change. But astrology is just like I tell you, when I think about it, it just makes me even more certain that we're being watched over by a very powerful divine presence who can put all of those things up into our universe, and just to know that they're predictable, and knowing that these movements are going to happen in our lives, and it's about how we decide to manage them is
right.
how our life turns out. It's not predestined. It's about us understanding the process that we're going through and making the most out of the opportunities.
Wow. It has been an absolute joy this morning to talk to you. I could talk to you for hours.
Same here.
More on Judi Vitale, author. She has 3 books. The latest is Live in Spirit, Love Your Life. And she wants everybody to know she is an empowerment consultant. And, of course, we did discuss that she's an author. But that website is readthestars.com. Judi, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us on CBS Radio.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Be well.